All right, guys, so if you saw my previous camping guitar video, you'll see that I built this and, I didn't have a step-by-step, but I hope to change that with my next build. This guitar, if when you're watching this video, will probably be on its way to Kenya because a young man in Kenya said he really likes it and he'd love to have it, so I'm sending it to him. So there's some minor differences between this version and the version that I did in the previous video. You can see it in the link up there. I'll leave a link in the description if that doesn't work. But one of the things I did was I changed the head, the neck to a 24-inch neck, so it's slightly shorter. So it's just, it's better for camping and traveling with a shorter neck. And I reshaped this headstock, so I made it a lot prettier than the previous version. I kind of like it. Another thing I did is it's being sent to Kenya, so I wasn't sure if the glue would hold on the bridge, so I put in these two screws to make sure it holds, Kenya heat. And another thing I did is I did a pickup. So I'm gonna send this guitar off, and I'm gonna build another camping guitar. And so by the time I do the other guitar, this one will be gone and we can't compare the two sounds, but I'm going to do the other one a little bit differently without routing. I'm going to do a non-routing technique. So that's the way this one sounds, and we'll just have to live with this recording. Oh yeah, but another thing I did, remember, I did the hookup. So it's just a piezo microphone. So he could plug it in and play loud. All right, so with my new build, the first thing I need to do is I need to find a donor guitar. And if you got a junky guitar laying around, it's probably going to be a great donor. If you can't even get $20, off at used, it's a good candidate. So looking at my rack, I need to find a junky guitar. No. Squier? No, but let me tell you why. No, definitely not my American Strat. And no. So let's take a look at this guy. And for this build, this is not an expensive guitar, but it's not a junky guitar. To me, even if I didn't customize it, it's still too nice for what I want to do. So this is my Squier Mustang that I customized, and I routed it a little bit bigger for these P90s, and I did this custom design on it, and I shielded the inside walls and the top with copper tape. So, I'm definitely not going to do this. I actually really like this guitar, despite it being a Squier. It's one of my favorite guitars. Actually, they're all kind of my favorite these days. I got rid of all the ones that aren't my favorite, all the junky guitars. So, I mean, what am I going to do now? Wait a minute. I think I got something. Yeah. All right, what is it, you ask? It is about the worst guitar out there. It's got the reputation of being the junkiest guitar out there, and yeah, I kind of did buy it brand new to do this build. Let's see what it is. And a lot of you probably already guessed. All right, here's the sucker. It didn't even print its name. It's so not so great. It's a Glarry. It's really light, and I'm sure it looks pretty darn good on camera. But I'll leave a link on it in the description. And I think I bought it off an auction for, gosh, I can't even remember, $69. You know, I'm not going to leave an auction link because those things don't stay live very long. But so I'll leave an Amazon link for you, and then you could buy it on eBay. It's a little bit cheaper, just so that you know. But this is going to be the perfect donor. And the reason is, one of the reasons is that I want to use this bridge for this build. So I'm going to use an electric bridge, and it's got a string through the top, which is perfect. Unlike picked up the wrong guitar. Unlike like this Fender Dual Sonic, which has a string through body, you know, that's not going to be the type of bridge I want for this type of build. But let me tell you more reasons why this is perfect for the build is because it's flat everywhere. There's no body cuts. So when I cut out the insides, it's going to be nice and flat for me to put the top. If you look at any kind of Strat, it's got this big, deep body cut. So, you know, I wouldn't be able to make as big of a cavity because I want to have it start where it's flat. So the cavity of the Strat's only going to be like that big, which is not going to, you know, it's going to be big enough, but I'd rather it to be as big as possible. So, you know, and this, man, I wish you guys could feel how light this is compared to a legitimate guitar. But anyways, this is going to be perfect, and it's going to be easy for me to cut because it is light, and I think it's basswood, so it's really light, and it's going to be perfect for this build. All right, so the first thing I got to do is I got to strip down all the parts, you know, take everything off and bring it down to the bare bone, and then you know, work on the neck a little bit. And one thing I noticed about this neck, this guitar is so cheap. I don't think there's any kind of protective coating at all on this neck. It's like bare wood. You know, not even a thin spray or anything. So I'm gonna have to address that. I'm going to need to put some kind of, I'll probably use True Oil or something just to give it some protection. Strip it down, and then we could bore out the middle. I won't need those cheap strings it came with. Now we got a bare body, and my plan, oops, forgot to take that sucker off. But anyways, my plan will be to, instead of routing this time, where I would route a cavity like I did my previous guitar, and you know, like I said, routing is pretty tough, and most people, we don't have routers, and we're not really good at it, and it's not that easy to make a good route. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna jigsaw out this whole cavity, and then I'm going to put a new top like I did my previous guitar, but I'm also going to do a new back. That way I could just use a jigsaw, and the cavity actually will be even bigger than my previous version, since the previous version there's a certain thickness that I had of the back, and you know, I'm guessing it's about that thick. It's just a guess. It's whatever thickness the cavity was, so you know, I just did it to the depth of that. But this time it's going to be even thicker, since it'll all be hollow out, and then I'll put a new top and a new back. All right, so what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to draw roughly the border that I plan to make this cut, and I'm going to use this cavity as the top guideline. So it doesn't have to be perfect. All right, so that's the way I want to make my cut and hollow this sucker out. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a jigsaw to cut out this pattern. And in addition, I decided to route this extra little loop just to get a little bit of extra cavity. But if you've used the jigsaw before, you'll know it's a little bit hard to make a sharp turn, especially turn that sharp. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drill a hole at that point, and for this point right here, I'm just going to take that out, and then just so I could jigsaw it a lot easier. Now this guy is you know, he's not as deep as the cavity, so I'll have to do it in two steps. Do the front side and then go from the back end and to finish it up. Okay, so I got this hole there, and I'll be able to jigsaw up to that point and jigsaw from there pretty easily. So now I need to do this part right here. Alright, as I mentioned earlier, this side's going to be a little bit trickier. I'll have to do it from both ends, but hopefully I'm going to get a hole, then I'll use that hole as a reference on the other side. I forgot to take this sucker out. I don't know how long that screw is, so I don't want to cut into that. Alright. I think that's about halfway, so now I'm going to need to drill this hole to the other side so I know where my reference is, so that I could line it up perfectly with that. Alright, so there you have it. Got the little hole for here, the bigger hole here. So now I'll take the jigsaw and go along. It should be a lot easier without those tough turns. Right, so when I make my cut here, I decided I'm probably going to cut it down to here and then go across there, just to give it a little bit extra structural stability, because, you know, I'm afraid it might be a little too thin once I take out the back. So I'm going to leave a little bit of the back and then go from here, and you'll see what I mean. All right, so I got the jigsaw to go all the way through. This comes out. That's what I got, and this is what I want. This is what I don't want. The bad news is, as I was cutting, a little bit chipped off, but that's because I was a little careless lifting up the jigsaw while it was still on, and it pounded right through and chipped it. But it's okay. I'm going to be able to glue that back in, and then I'm going to have the bottom sheet anyway. It'll be fine. Nobody would even know about it. But this is the key right here. This frame that I'm going to use for the guitar. We're going to glue on the top pieces, and I think it's going to be real nice. It's actually turning out really nice. All right, so now I need to decide whether to get this underlayment right here, which I think looks pretty good for a 2x4 piece. And that's only $7.74. Or my other choice is this birch, which is a higher quality. It's a darker wood for $13.71. I think I'm gonna go with this one. It looks a little bit better. All right, so the piece I decided on is this birch piece, and look at the grains on this is beautiful. So I really like the grains, and I'm gonna make the guitar out of it. All right, so now we need to trace out the top and the back for the guitar, and this, you got to make sure you cut according to the right side of the wood that you want, because the wood on this side is not the same as the wood on this side. So whatever grain you pick, you got to make sure you cut it accordingly. So this, I'm going to cut the back piece first. So this is the back of the guitar. So what I really want is to measure this side. To make this side on the back. So this will have to be the back of the guitar. And then I'm gonna draw that out here, and then cut it. All right, so now I got that traced out. That's the back of the guitar. Now, cutting the top is going to be a little bit trickier because we have this cutout here. So I'm going to have to find a way to do that. That won't fit. So this is going to be for the top cut. And I'm going to have to be able to cut that out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw the outside, but then I'm going to measure this cut on the inside. All right, so now I'm just going to use measurements to draw this inside part. And hopefully my measurements are good. All right, got that done. I did some wood splitting, but that's the best I could do. But you can see the grain looks real nice. It's gonna be a real nice back. All right, got that. Need to cut that part out, and that should be it. I'll get it with the sander, straighten it out. So here's the top. Stupid me, I measured right here, but the cavity is a little bit further. So this part wasn't straight, but that's not gonna be a problem because I didn't measure it right. Gotta get a little bit underneath. All right, so now I got that shape right. Okay, since I'm going to be gluing onto this surface right here, and it's very smooth, it's got that finish on it, I need to scuff it up. And I don't necessarily need to take it all off, but I do need to scuff it up. I don't think it's good to be smooth like that. Now the other side. All right, so now they're both scuffed up. We're gonna glue on the top and back. All right, next we're gonna glue everything in and clamp everything down. Make sure you got the right side, of course. So it's gonna look like this. And then we're gonna sand everything down later. So let's get the glue in. I'm using Titebond. Leave it there for now, and then I'm going to do the top, and then I'll do the fine adjustments and then clamp it on. All right, you serious woodworkers out there will probably have to hold your breath, but I don't have a lot of clamps, and my experience with gluing wood like this is you can never have too many clamps. So I used what I had, and I made some makeshift clamps with some old scrap wood and some long screws, and I clamped them down on both sides. I actually think that makes a nicer bond than these clamps that I have, but it'll be fine. It's not pretty, but it's gonna hold and it'll dry up nicely. All right, so I let it dry overnight, and we're gonna see how this turned out. right, so that's the way it looks like. Not too bad. So what I need to do next is I need to sand it all down smooth. You know, it's definitely very edgy right now. All right, so let's take a closer look. So you could see, you know, the cut. It's certainly not going to be perfect because I don't cut and measure that perfect. My plan is to start grinding down these edges. Let me turn it to sideways at an angle so that it fits with the curve of this. Just, you know, the edge is rounded off. It's not a straight sharp edge, so I'm going to try to round it off. Getting down to the wood. All right, so this is the easier part when you have the belt sander. It's nice and smooth, but now this is the hard part, the parts that I can't get to. We'll have to do that by hand with the mouse sander. All right, so the hand sanding is a lot harder. Oh boy, it was tough to get in there. The mouse couldn't even get in there. I had to do it by hand, and it's not perfect, but I'm gonna stop because I'm tired. I did split a lot of wood, but hopefully I'll be able to fill that up and even it out later. So now I'm gonna round off the edges. All right, so I rounded off the edges so it's kind of smooth. I still need to go over it with the fine sandpaper, but I'm gonna fill up all the holes and all the little gaps that the glue didn't really seep through. Probably should have put more glue, but I'm gonna fill it up with some wood putty and then sand it down with some finer grit. All right, so I'm gonna use this wood filler to fill in all the little holes and things like that, and then go around. You know, looking here, I still didn't get it all off, but you know what? That spot was just so hard to get to, and I'm getting carpal tunnel in my hand, so I'm gonna stop. I may regret it. I may not. We'll see. It's a little old. Shouldn't be that bubbly, but. Alright, so I put the wood putty. Let's see, wood putty all around. Fill up all these little gaps, and then I'm going to do the back side on the edges, and then I'll do the inside little seams. All right, so I got all the holes and everything filled in with the wood putty. Top, edges. I'm gonna let that dry overnight and then sand it down with some finer grit, and hopefully it'll start looking good. All right, so it dried up overnight. Let's take a look at it. I think it looks pretty good. Wood grains look great. One thing I do have to do is, if you look right here, I didn't want to have to sand it down more because my hands were getting so tired, but I'm going to have to go back and revisit this because I need to get all that out. But I should be rested up today, up to the task. I'm going to take it down with 500 sandpaper, then probably 320, maybe a little bit less. All right, I'm going to start with 320 grit, and then I'll probably move to a finer grit. Alright, so this is what it looks like after I sand it down. It's nice and smooth. There's still the areas I filled in. It didn't fill in as nicely as I was hoping. I think the filler that I used is just too white. Should have been a darker filler, but that's okay. It's gonna be fine. Oddly enough, the back looks better than the front. For whatever reason, the back turned out better than the front. So next up, I'm going to drill a hole and then sand off the edges. And I'll probably drill a hole here. I don't want a hole in the middle. And the reason is I always lose my pick in that hole. If it's in the middle, if I drop my pick, it always goes in the hole. But if I put it up here, my pick won't fall in the hole. All right, sand off the edges. Then I have my sound hole. All right, now we have our sound hole. All right, up next, I'm going to mock things up. Going to put on the neck. I'm going to mock it up and measure where the bridge needs to be and mark the drill holes. I'm not going to glue this down like you would an acoustic bridge, but I'm just going to use these 4 screw holes. And with the thick plywood, it's very strong. I don't think it'll be any. Almost forgot one very important thing. Since we elevated the normal top by the thickness of this plywood sheet, I need to put a shim here that's made from the same thickness. So I'm going to cut a piece that fits right there, drill the holes. Actually, I'm going to drill the holes first on this side to get the holes, and then I'm going to put the shim in. All right, so I have the shim. I'm not going to glue in the shim because I want to be able to adjust the size if I need to, if I want to shave it down, just the height. Do the mock-up now. And this will allow me to measure where to line up my bridge. That's basically what I'll do. And I'll measure the gaps on both sides with the straight edge to make sure it lines up in the middle. But the main thing is that I measure the proper length from the 12th fret for a good intonation. It doesn't have to be perfect because it's an adjustable bridge, so I could, fine tune it pretty easily. So I'm not going to worry too much. If it's an acoustic bridge, you do want to be perfect. All right, don't laugh too hard, but I'm using dental floss to line up the strings, and the reason is if I'm not ready to put tension yet, and if I use the real strings, the metal will require too much tension. So I want to just be able for it to be able to be taut, and I could still mark the holes without losing my position. All right, so now I drew out the holes for the bridge and for the pickup. Now, drilling these holes back here, these 4 holes, is pretty simple, but this is a little bit of an odd shape. It's going to be a little bit tough for me to cut that out. So I'm just going to do the easy part first. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to cut 2 holes right here, and then use that as my starting on the jigsaw so I can move around. Alright, I'm just going to use this piece of wood so I know that I'm lined up to the edge of my target so I don't go overboard. Looks like a pretty good start. I'll do the same here and then I'll jigsaw the rest. Alright, so I got that hole cut out. It actually looks pretty good. Pretty clean cut. I ended up using a Dremel to cut down the edges with the little diamond ring. it took a little work. It took a while to eat through the wood, but you know, it made a cleaner cut than a jigsaw probably would. All right, so next up, what I want to do is I want to protect the wood with some True Oil. So if you never used True Oil before, you should give it a shot. I'll leave a link on it. It's great. It's really easy to work with. It's basically gunstock oil. You know, it says gunstock oil, um, but it's really easy to apply. You just kind of rub it in, and I was considering using a dye and using this orange. Um, I'm gonna opt against it this time. Not because of any issues with it, but just I think acoustics look better when they're wood color, not so much a dye type color. So this will help bring out some pop of the wood. It will make it darker. It's not a completely clear finish, but the nice thing is that you know, you just apply it with, you know, a paper towel or something like that. You just rub it in, and I'll show you. Wear gloves because this stuff is pretty crazy. As with any type of coating, it's going to be crazy. But what I'm going to do is just have this little tissue paper type. I'm using it's glass wipes. It works better than tissue paper because tissue paper will, you know, leave a lot of you know, break that stuff. What do you call that? Lint, whatever. So you just put some on that and just rub it in. That's basically what we're going to do for the whole guitar. I find that when you do this, it's better to go with the wood grain. You know, it just gets in there nice and even. Make sure you get the insides of your cutout holes. Get that protected. You don't want to put on a super thick coating or anything like that. You know, just you want it to be just real nice and even. Go with the grain and make it nice and even. Now, the first layer is going to soak up more than the other layers, of course, because it's going to soak into the wood, and then the other layers will go on top of the True Oil. And I'm probably only going to do 2 layers or so, but I'm going to do the top and sides first and completely finish that. Then I'm going to flip it over and do the bottom. And this is going to take a while because you need to wait. I'm going to probably say I'm going to wait at least, I'm going to wait 6 hours between coatings, and I'm probably going to do just 2 coatings, something really light. I don't want it to be real heavy, a really heavy coating. Around 6 hours, so it'll take me a couple of days to get the whole guitar done. All right, so I got the first layer in. Looks good. So while we're waiting for this to dry, what I want to do is I want to work on the neck a little bit. It's just no effort was put into this neck, and if you look at this nut, it's not very good. It's not cut very well or anything like that. And I was look at that gap. I was trying to keep this build as inexpensive as possible and use basically 100% of the original parts, but I have an extra nut laying around that's better than this, so I'm going to replace this nut. But you know, you could use it. You could use it. It's not like it's going to be catastrophic or anything like that. But I'm going to replace the nut. I'm going to remove all this, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to customize the headstock. I don't think this headstock is super ugly or anything like that. You know, this bird's beak type thing. Actually, I think it looks pretty decent, but I do want to customize it a little bit, and I do want it to look a little bit more telly-ish. So we're going to do that, and at the same time, we're also going to True Oil the back, because this is unfinished, so the wood is bare, so I want to protect it a little bit too. Alright, so now we have that headstock that I could start working on. I'm going to grind it down a little bit and reshape it. Alright, so that should look good enough. I'm going to smooth everything out. Alright, so now that I got the headstock looking like I want, let me show that for the camera. It has looks a little like a telly, well, a lot like a telly, but not exactly. But I need to change out the nut now. I'm gonna pop this nut out and replace it with the new one and glue on the new one. Alright, got that old crappy nut out. I'm going to replace it with the new one. Alright, so there's the new nut. Looks much better than the old one. Now it's time to put some Tru-Oil on the whole thing, protect it up. And that's it, just a light coating of Tru-Oil just to make it a little bit more protected. Alright, so I let this first layer dry off, and I put this just for better, easier handling, this little handle thing. Here's the back side, unfinished, and here's the front side. You can see this really, the Tru-Oil really brings out the wood grains, and it gives it a darker finish now that it's dried. Not super dark, but just darker. So I'm going to do the back. And then do the front again, one more coat, and then one more coat on the back. I'll probably just do 2 coats. Most people do a lot more than 2, but I'm impatient. Oh, you could even probably just do that and wipe it on. The next layers, it just won't soak up. Take a look at that. I mean, it already looks so much better. All right, I'm going to add another layer on the top side and on the sides, and then when that dries up, I'll do the back one more time. All right, not much to do while I wait for the guitars to dry, the guitar to dry, and the neck to dry. But one thing that I know I will need is these bolt-on neck screws. They're not going to be long enough because they were made for a certain depth, which I increased. So if you look here, I have to buy one that's bigger by 2 sheets of plywood. So these just won't be long enough. They won't hold secure enough. So just go out to Home Depot and probably buy some lath screws type things that'll be a little bit deeper. In addition, the screws for the bridge. This is the screw for the bridge. and it was made to have, you know, a solid body, so this thing would be nice and deep. But since I put in the new top, you know, this is not going to have any thread in it where it needs it, so I'm going to need to get a new screw for that too. I could use the screws for the pick guard, which I think might be okay. They're certainly long enough because that my top is not this thick. They're just a little bit thin. I prefer something bigger, so I'm gonna go to the Home Depot and I'm gonna buy something that's longer than this. And if I see something that's like this but a little bit fatter, I'll get it. If not, I'm just going to try those. All right, so I'm going to work on the neck a little bit, and I'm really quite impressed with how straight this neck is and how level the frets are. The frets are very level. There's only a couple frets that are just, you know, on the edge, but I'm going to even those frets out, level them out, and won't have to do too much work. All right, a little fret oil for the frets, and then the neck should be all ready to go. Get ready for the body to dry up, and then we'll put everything together. All right, I got a little ahead of myself. I forgot I have to solder the pickup, and I'm not going to use any of the switches. You can, if you want, you could add everything back in, and you could put the front pickups too. But for me, I'm just going to go straight pickup into the jack, and no volume control, no tone, just straight pickup. Now, soldering is one of those things I know just enough to be dangerous. That's not a good thing. All right, so before I put on the last coat, what I'm going to do is go over with 1200 sandpaper first, because if you feel it, you feel sawdust and things like that were collected and it's stuck to it because of the true oil, you know, so it's a little rough. So I wanted to polish it out. After that, you feel it. Oh boy, it feels so much better. So I'm going to do the same to the sides and the back. All right, so now that I got it sanded down nice and smooth, you can see it doesn't really take away from the finish, or it doesn't dull it out or anything like that. The 1200 sandpaper is really fine, and it just takes that little roughness off. So I'm going to go over it with one more coating of true oil, and that'll be it. I'm going to let it dry overnight, and then tomorrow morning, well, tomorrow sometime, hopefully I could assemble everything. All right, so everything's dried up. So there's my headstock. I actually signed my headstock. So now it's got a real nice light, almost like a satin finish, but there's definitely a finish that's going to protect the wood. Let's take a look at the body. The body is nice and smooth since I did the sanding. There's the back. And if you want, you could sand it again to make it, you know, even smoother, but you know, it's still pretty good because there's always some debris that gets on it, and a lot of times you can just kind of rub that off because, you know, dust and whatnot collects on it while it's drying. But so now I'm going to assemble it. What I need to do is, so I have the pickup and the bridge, and I'm going to need to route it through and then solder it to the pickup jack. It's a little bit tight because of the wire. It's trying to wedge in. All right, I'm going to drill these things down or screw them down so that they stay in place while I do the soldering. And if you remember, I went out to Home Depot and I got some screws. Here are the screws I got, just basic stuff. Now I'm gonna screw in this bridge, and I'm gonna just use a little dab of glue, wood glue, for lubrication. It's not, just gonna put it a little bit on the tip for lubrication. Yeah. Not really to hold anything in. All right, you don't want to go too overboard on that and strip out the wood, because it ain't ever coming back. All right, next up, I'm going to trim down this excess wire and then solder it in. All right, so now that this is soldered up, I'm going to install it or drill it in. All right, so that's in there. Let's get that neck installed. All right, so now I got that shim in, and I may end up grinding down that shim a little bit more. We'll see after I install everything to see how everything fits. All right, so I got the bigger screws that I got from the Home Depot. So here's the original one it came with, and here's the slightly longer ones. Now it's a little bit longer. We'll see. All right, that looks good. Looks like a guitar. So let's put on the tuners and string it up. All right, that's in. Let's string it up. All right, I got this thing strung up. I got it set up and intonated. That took a while with all the adjustments I made. I'm sure it was way out of whack, but man, I'm actually really surprised. Here's a look at the guitar, and it looks pretty good. If you look real close, there's some finishing issues, but it's still I think it looks pretty good, and you can see it's thick. It's not thin like my previous build. This one's is a lot thicker, but this one uses that electric bridge, and I wasn't sure how it would sound, but man, I think it sounds pretty good, and it's really loud. So just really surprised at how loud this is and how much sound it makes, and you know, really the sound quality. Let me compare it to a full-size Dreadnought. This is a Martin D16, and I mean, this is a big sound. So no, but my camping guitar is not going to have the bass of a Martin, but for what it is, I think it sounds really good. Yeah, so you're not going to have the big Martin bass, but still, you know, you can produce a pretty decent amount of sound. But one advantage of these camping guitars, this one and the first one I built, is that because it's got electric bones, you know, I could play electric guitar on them. So I'm not a very good player, and I don't want to showcase my playing, but I just want you to hear it. To me, it sounds pretty good, and you know, you're able to play electric guitar, you know, while you're camping. So please don't critique my guitar playing, but it's more about the sound of the guitar and the build, and you know, this was a lot of fun to build, and I'm actually thinking about building another one. This was so much fun. I'm thinking about building it from a Strat. I mean, there's a million cheap, crappy Strats out there that you couldn't get $20 for, but if you make it into something custom and personalized, it's going to be a lot more valuable to you, and it's not going to sit in the corner collecting dust, and you'll actually take it when you travel. So which one do I think is better, this one or the first one that I built, you know, where I routed out the body and I put on a new top? Well, this one is significantly heavier, you know, with the electric pick. Oh, the electric pickup. I gotta plug that sucker in. 1 second. Feedback. Let me turn this down. All right. A little too much gain, a little too close to the guitar. So that's on a clean channel. Just let me go even cleaner. So this is in acoustic mode. Turn that down. Wow, I'm really impressed at how good this sounds. It does sound richer and fuller than the previous version, because you know, it's got a much bigger body. The hollow body is much bigger, so I think that's why, you know, it has a much better sound. So going back to what I was saying, for camping, I'm going to say the first one is probably better because it's thinner, it's lighter weight. I have the body cuts, and you know, you could just sit with it so comfortably because it's such a thin guitar and it's super light. But I think, you know, for a more versatile guitar that you want to get a little bit more aggressive or creative, maybe, I don't know. I think this one sounds better. I don't know. What do you guys think?